Over the course of creating this project, I used several different technologies, pieces of equipment, and Web 2.0 software, which is a term coined by Tim O'Reilly in 2004. Web 2.0 was coined because it reflects the fact that the internet is becoming more interactive, allowing more people to upload material as well as to download it. Tim described it as a social phenomenon, embracing an approach to generating and distributing web content itself, characterised by open communication, decentralisation of authority, freedom to share and reuse. Successful Web 2.0 applications are those which harness collective intelligence, O'Reilly in 2005. This is where users can add value by adding their own data to that which is provided by the site. Technologies have improved massively over the last few decades due to the rise of the computer and the like, and this has in turn changed the ways in which audiences consume and interact with media texts. This all occurred through a process of technological or media determinism, a term initially coined by Thorstein Veblen in 1921 and then adopted by Marshall McLuhan in 1964. During the stage of pre-production and throughout the course of the project, I used Google Mail, Web 2.0 software used for sending posts to my Posterous blog account, which acts as a work folder for planning documents, essays, and lesson objectives. Google Mail had the advantage of making it easier to blog quickly rather than having to log into Posterous, saving time when posting lesson objectives. I couldn't find any disadvantages with Google Mail, however Posterous had a disadvantage of being unreliable. Most weeks the blog would reset itself to post from weeks back and didn't immediately post new blogs. That said, it was simple to operate and was easy to make the appearance professional. Also during pre-production, I used the Web 2.0 software Prezi to create a presentation of my initial ideas in a format that is different and unique to the generic PowerPoint presentations. Again, this software was easy to use and made what could have been a boring presentation to my target audience much more interesting. The only disadvantages I found with the software is that sometimes embedded videos within the presentation did not play, which is what happened during my pitch, and sometimes the embed code showed on the Posterous blog, making the post look untidy. Luckily, I could amend this by removing the offending code, although this is a pain. To go with the presentation, I also used Microsoft Word to construct a questionnaire about my ideas to distribute to the audience. I also used this software to create various other planning documents, such as my initial ideas document. Again, this software was easy to use and good for creating professional-looking documents, and I found no disadvantages to the software. The final Web 2.0 software I used during pre-production was Facebook, the social networking site. This was a good place to complete my outstanding questionnaires and made for speedy feedback, an advantage to the software. I found no disadvantage with the software, although getting people's attention to answer proved difficult. During production, I mainly used video hardware such as the Canon Mini DV video camera along with the tripod to capture my master shot for the interview. The rest of the filming was handheld. Both of these products were lightweight, compact and simple to use with only two main buttons, record and playback. Mark Taus, 2002, detailed that digital video, DV, is one of the most important advancements in motion picture technology since television. The camera delivered a decent sound and video quality, which was a little less than professional to maintain the raw edge I wanted on my product. I also used the white balance feature to get the colour levels of the surroundings correct. A key improvement I could make when using such a product in the future would be to take a spare battery. When filming on location at the house, I plugged the camera into the main source using the external power cable provided. But for the gig environment this was not possible, and I found that although the battery was fully charged before shooting, the power quickly drained. During production I also used a handy H2 Zoom microphone to record clearer audio than that on the camera's recording facility. I found that although the quality of the sound was greatly improved with little background noise, the recorder was difficult to use, as it isn't a tool I've ever used in the past. Therefore, to rectify this in the future, I will practice using this technology before shooting. For the interview I used it again and found my use this time was better, and I applied the clearer audio to the interview sequence to give it a more serious feel than the distorted camera recorded gig audio, which I found added to the narrative. Key features I used on this technology were the record button, which does exactly what it says on the tin, and also the microphone setup button to switch the setup from surround to rear microphone, a recommendation by media technicians. I also checked the audio volume using the levels monitor, altering the gain using the slider on the side to keep the peaks below 3/4 on the monitor, preventing distortion. I also utilised my personal Panasonic Lumix digital camera to capture the still shots to use on my ancillary products. Key features I used here were the capture button to take the shots and also the composition display, rule of thirds, to ensure good composition on the photography. While stills taken with an SLR would have looked much more professional, the effect I applied in Photoshop during post-production meant the grainy quality actually added to how effective the filter applied was. Also, professional photography wasn't as much as a requirement as it was during print at AS. At post-production, software was the main area I came into contact with, specifically image manipulation software Adobe Photoshop Elements 5.0, non-linear video editing software Adobe Premiere Pro CS3, and Quark Express 8. In terms of post-production of my main product, Premiere Pro CS3 was my best friend. Having used it in the past, I found the software easy to operate and brilliant for constructing a professional product, as it is software used in the industry. The main tool I used was the Razor tool, which I tended to use via the keyboard shortcut Ctrl and K. Razor in the footage was how I cut up the main footage file, which I captured via a Firewire cable from the camera using Premiere's capture facility. I stored the clip in the media bin along with other imported clips, audio and titles. I cut and pasted the Razored file into separate sequences for easier footage location during editing and had various sequences for main band footage, insert shots and interview master footage, for example. I also had a main sequence for constructing the final piece. I arranged all the clips on the timeline within Premiere's window, and I could also zoom in and out on this to browse by smaller frames for more precise razoring. I also used Premiere's track style of editing to effectively layer up the video footage and the audio, and I could also mute tracks so they didn't interfere with the dialogue tracks linked to the video. I was also able to layer over the entire documentary the 4Music logo, a convention of television, and also demonstrating my knowledge of institutional context. Positioning cutaways was much easier as I could, for example, alter the length of a clip without destroying the main track of footage, all through the use of layering. Altering the audio levels were also easy through the use of keyframes, which I positioned on the automation lines of the audio tracks. Using the select tool to pull down the said line between the keyframes and shaping my music around the dialogue. I also utilised video transitions from within the effects bin, specifically dip to black to signal the start and end of the documentary as well as where the ad break would be. I also used audio transitions, namely the constant gain crossfade, to make the transition between music tracks much smoother. Throughout editing, I was able to watch individual clips in the source monitor and the entire project in the program monitor window, another useful tool Premiere had for fast editing and referencing. Also during post-production, I used image manipulation program Adobe Photoshop Elements 5.0 to manipulate my imagery which I gathered at production. To do this, I used the crop tool to center the subjects in the shot. I then used the gradient map filter to replicate the style of the Arctic Monkeys live at the Apollo poster, selecting a different colour for each photo using the colour selection menu. To extract the logo from the album cover, I used the Magic Wand tool, holding down Ctrl and using the select tool to drag and drop all the individual letters together into a new document. Within the new document, I recoloured these selected letters black using the Paint Bucket tool so that they showed up on my advert's white background. Finally, I used desktop publishing program Quark Express 8 to construct my double-page spread ancillary task. To create this, I made a pastiche of the Guardian's Guide TV Listings magazine. The most essential tools were the text and picture box tools, into which I could import my article from Microsoft Word and the manipulated imagery from Photoshop respectively. Quark 8 was much better than Quark 7, which I used at AS due to its improved photo resizing tools, which can now be done within the software instead of having to perfectly size the images in Photoshop before importing. I also used the shape tool to draw rectangles across the 3 pages I created in the software, which acted as a backdrop to my headline and on the 3rd page for the news in brief analysis of upcoming bands. I sized and positioned all the elements in Quark using the gridline facility which can be set up upon the opening of the document. I made the preset grids even more precise by using the rulers available in Quark, which I sized by measuring up the elements using a physical copy of the guide and transferring these measurements into the software. After importing the imagery, I then copied and pasted my article from Word into the text boxes I created earlier, which I linked together using the link tool so that the text flowed straight across the page without me having to import it bit by bit, thus saving time. The text format toolbar was useful for amending the font style, resizing the text, and making certain words bold or italic. Finally, in the paragraph settings, I applied drop caps to my opening paragraph, a convention of print products. In the evaluation stage, I used a combination of my Panasonic Lumix and built-in MacBook camera to film my evaluation footage and iMovie to edit this footage together. Both cameras provided me with the high-quality footage to use in my evaluations, along with the audio recorded on the Lumix. iMovie was difficult to use at first as it isn't as precise as Adobe Premiere Pro CS3, but once I mastered the use of the software, it was reasonably simple to use. I imported my media into the media bin via iMovie's import link with iPhoto, where I stored all my clips, and then I simply dragged this into the edit window. I could set the video duration of each clip by clicking the clog on the clip and selecting clip adjustments. I could then type in the required duration. I also used the titles tools to fill space and to illustrate where I mentioned theories. Transitions were useful for small montage sequences, specifically the cross dissolve for a video which flowed well. iMovie was difficult to use at first as it was new software to me, and I also found it took longer to adjust the duration of clips as you can't just drag a slider as you would in Premiere. However, I found it produced a more professional looking product and didn't require half as much work to do so. Overall, I found all of the software and equipment I came into touch with during this product enjoyable to use and easy to use after some practice. I found the mini DV camera the easiest equipment to use because you put the tape in and you're ready to record instantly. And I also found Premiere the easiest technology to use, although this is most likely because I'd used it in the past. I found Posterous the most difficult software to use because it was so unreliable and amending posts or even logging in often proved difficult. I found the H2 zoom mic the most difficult equipment to use as I'd never used it in the past and hadn't had much practice prior to using this, so I think this was maybe why it caused me such difficulty. Next time I should practice using new equipment before filming the project. However, in the end, I ended up using the camera audio for most of my project as it gave the product an extra rawness that I wanted to deliver to my audience.